The call came at 4:23 in the morning. Nathan Cole had been asleep for less than 2 hours. He worked night shifts at a distribution warehouse on the south side of Columbus, Ohio. He got home at 2 a.m. most nights. He was asleep by 2:30. He did not recognize the number. He almost didn't answer. He answered. The voice on the other end was a woman, older, measured, the kind of voice that belongs to someone who has rehearsed what they are about to say many times, and has decided that the rehearsed version is better than the honest one. She said, "Is this Nathan Cole, son of Richard Cole?" Nathan said yes. She said, "My name is Eleanor Marsh. I am an attorney in the city of Portland, Maine. I am calling because your father passed away 6 days ago, and he has left you something in his will." Nathan said nothing for a long moment. Then he said, "I haven't spoken to my father in 19 years. Eleanor Marsh said, "I know." Then she said, "That is precisely why he left it to you." Nathan Cole was 38 years old. He had not seen or spoken to his father since he was 19. The year his parents' marriage ended in a way that left marks on everyone involved. His father had moved away, built a new life, started over. Nathan had done the same. He had a small apartment, a used car, a job that paid enough to cover rent and groceries with a little left over. He had a sister named Carla, who lived in Denver and called him on birthdays. He had a dog named Pete, who slept at the foot of his bed. He did not think about his father often. When he did, it was the way you think about a storm that passed a long time ago. You remember the damage. You don't miss the weather. He had not known his father was sick. He had not known his father was dying. He found out his father was dead at 4:23 in the morning from a woman he had never met. He flew to Portland 4 days later. The law office of Eleanor Marsh was on the 3rd floor of a building downtown that smelled like old paper and carpet cleaner. Eleanor herself was exactly what her voice had suggested. 70 years old, silver hair, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. The kind of woman who had been organizing other people's affairs for so long that she had become indistinguishable from the affairs themselves. She offered Nathan coffee. He accepted. She poured it from a machine in the corner that looked older than he was. She sat across from him and opened a folder. She said, "Your father owned a property in the town of Grayfield, Maine. Population approximately 800. He purchased it in 2003 and lived there until his death. The property consists of a house, a barn, and approximately 14 acres of land." Nathan asked what condition the property was in. Eleanor looked at him over her reading glasses. She said, "That is something I would encourage you to assess for yourself." Nathan asked why. She said, "Because your father left specific instructions that you were to be the first person to enter the house after his death, not the estate executor, not the cleaning service, you, and he left a letter to be given to you before you entered, that he asked me not to read." She slid an envelope across the desk. Nathan's name was written on it in handwriting he did not recognize. His father's handwriting, a man he had not seen in 19 years. He put the letter in his jacket pocket without opening it. He drove to Grayfield that afternoon. Grayfield. Maine was the kind of town that looked like it had been built for a purpose that no longer existed. There was a gas station that doubled as a convenience store, a diner called Helen's, a post office, a volunteer fire department, a church with a hand-painted sign out front that said, "All are welcome. Sundays, 10 a.m." The town sat at the edge of a lake. The water was gray-green and still. The trees around it were the kind of old that makes you feel like the trees were there before the town, and will be there long after it is gone. Nathan stopped at the diner for directions. The woman behind the counter, Helen, presumably, looked at him for a moment when he mentioned his father's name. Something moved across her face. Not quite recognition, not quite unease. Something between the two. She gave him directions without comment. He drove 14 minutes out of town on a road that got narrower and less certain the further he went, until he found it. A house at the end of a dirt lane. White. 2 stories, a barn to the left, 14 acres of field and forest stretching out behind it. It looked like a house where nothing had ever happened. Nathan had been alive long enough to know that those were often the most dangerous kind. He sat in the car for 10 minutes before he went inside. He read the letter first. It was 2 pages, handwritten, the same unfamiliar handwriting from the envelope. He read it twice. Then he folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. He would never show the letter to anyone. Not to Eleanor Marsh, not to his sister Carla, not to the investigators who would later ask him about it repeatedly. All he would ever say about the contents of that letter was this: "My father told me where to look, and he told me that I would not like what I found. And he told me that he was sorry, not for what he had done, but for what he had not done, for how long he had known, and said nothing." The inside of the house was clean, orderly. The furniture was modest but well kept. The kitchen was stocked, the beds were made. It looked like the home of a man who had been expecting to come back, and had not. Nathan went through the house methodically, room by room, the way the letter had told him to. The living room, the kitchen, the 2 upstairs bedrooms, the bathroom, the study. In the study, he found what his father had described: a filing cabinet, 4 drawers, locked. The key was taped to the bottom of the desk drawer, exactly where the letter said it would be. He unlocked the cabinet. The top drawer contained financial records, tax returns, bank statements going back 20 years. The second drawer contained personal documents: his father's birth certificate, his parents' marriage certificate, Nathan's own birth certificate, his sister Carla's. The third drawer contained photographs, dozens of them, people Nathan did not recognize, houses, properties, locations. Some of the photographs were labeled on the back with dates and place names. Some were not. The fourth drawer was different. It contained a single manila envelope, thick, sealed. On the front of it, in his father's handwriting, were 2 words: "I'm sorry." Nathan opened it. He would later describe what he found inside as the longest night of his life. Not because of what the documents said, not because of the names they contained, not because of the dates and the transactions and the careful, methodical record-keeping that his father had maintained for what appeared to be the better part of 2 decades, but because of what it meant. His father had known something for a very long time. He had gathered evidence. He had documented it. He had organized it with the same quiet precision that he had apparently applied to every other aspect of his life. And he had said nothing. Not to the police, not to the authorities, not to anyone who could have acted on it. He had put it in a filing cabinet in a house at the end of a dirt road in a town of 800 people. And he had locked the drawer, and he had taped the key to the bottom of a desk drawer. And he had waited. For 19 years, he had waited, and then he had died, and he had left it to his son, the son he hadn't spoken to in 19 years. The son he had walked away from when he was 19 years old. Nathan sat on the floor of his father's study for a long time. He did not move. He did not call anyone. He read every page of every document in that envelope, and when he was finished, he understood why his father had been afraid. And he understood, with a certainty that settled over him, like cold water, that he was now afraid too. Nathan Cole took the envelope to the FBI field office in Portland, Maine on a Thursday morning in October. He had driven back to Columbus. He had taken 2 days off work. He had sat with Pete and thought about what to do. He thought about his father, the man who had gathered this information over 20 years and done nothing with it. The man who had built a life in a small town at the end of a dirt road, as if distance could substitute for courage. He thought about the letter, the apology, the explanation that wasn't quite an explanation. And he thought about the people whose names appeared in those documents. The people who had been wronged, who had lost things they could never get back, who had never known why. He drove to Portland. He walked into the field office. He told the agent at the desk that he had information relating to a financial crime that had been ongoing for approximately 20 years, and that he believed involved individuals who were still active. The agent asked him to wait. He waited for 40 minutes. Then a woman in a gray blazer came out and introduced herself as Special Agent Dana Reeves. She shook his hand. She led him to a conference room. She set a recorder on the table between them. She said, "Tell me everything." Nathan put the envelope on the table. He said, "It's all in here. My father spent 20 years putting it together. I think he was trying to make it right. I think in the end, he just couldn't do it himself." Dana Reeves looked at the envelope for a moment. Then she looked at Nathan. She said, "And you can?" Nathan thought about his father, about 19 years of silence, about a house at the end of a dirt road, about a filing cabinet with a locked 4th drawer, about 2 words on a manila envelope. He said, "I don't know, but I'm going to try." The investigation that followed Nathan Cole's disclosure lasted 14 months. 3 individuals were indicted. 2 pleaded guilty before trial. 1 went to trial and was convicted on 7 counts. Nathan testified. He was in the witness stand for 2 days. He answered every question. He did not look at the defense table. When it was over, he drove back to Columbus. He went back to work. He went home to Pete. He called his sister Carla that night. He told her everything. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Do you think he knew that you would be the one to do it?" Nathan looked out his apartment window at the city. He said, "Yeah, I think he did. I think that's why he left it to me. Carla said, "Why didn't he just do it himself?" Nathan didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet, careful, the kind of voice that belongs to someone who has thought about something for a very long time and is still not sure they have the right answer. He said, "I think he was ashamed, not of what he knew, but of how long it took him to decide that knowing wasn't enough." Nathan still lives in Columbus. He still works at the warehouse. He still has Pete. He went back to Grayfield once. He drove out to the house on the dirt road. He stood in the driveway for a while. He didn't go inside. He sold the property 6 months later. He used the money to pay off his car and put the rest in a savings account he hasn't touched. He kept one thing from the house, a photograph from the third drawer of the filing cabinet. It shows a man and a boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing in front of a car. The man has his hand on the boy's shoulder. They are both squinting into the sun. Nathan doesn't know who took the photograph. He doesn't know where they were standing or what year it was taken. But the man in the photograph is his father, and the boy is him. And they are both smiling. He keeps it on the shelf above his desk. He's not sure why. He thinks maybe it's because it's the only version of his father he ever understood. The one who stood in the sun with his hand on his son's shoulder. Before the silence started, before the filing cabinet, before the locked drawer and the taped key and the letter that took 19 years to write, before all of it, just a man and his son squinting into the sun. This story is fictional and created for entertainment purposes only.